Jeff, you touched on a couple of points about you're going to need a strong Wi-Fi network. You're going to need this highway for all of these devices and this automation and this contactless stuff to work. And really, CommScope and Ruckus has really led the way here for this market in this industry. Brett, why don't we talk about a little bit as you hear Jeff and the group talk about the needs of hoteliers, what are some of the ways CommScope and Ruckus is innovating to help this industry?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. In fact, I wanted to jump in and build off of something that Jeff was talking about. When we look at the opportunity for cost savings associated with converging some of these networks or bringing some of these disparate networks back online, like bringing your energy management system online, besides the operational cost savings that you can realize just by reducing that, the heating and cooling costs. And we've got an ecosystem partner that has some great case studies published out there, talking about some large marquee properties who, when they brought all of their thermostats and interim sensors online property-wide, they were able to realize a 45% cost savings on an annualized basis, right? So it's not insignificant what you can save there, but then the value stacks, because now not only do you have the operational cost savings, but you have reduced cycle time on the HVAC gear itself. That offers some additional savings. And then you've got, because of the machine learning and AI engines that back these systems up, we've found that you've been able to predict downtime. So you can proactively schedule maintenance cycles and address downtimes before they happen. And that has an impact then on the guest satisfaction, right? So it's this stacked value around doing that. And what we're finding and what we've been really focused on from the CommScope perspective is, how do we leverage the existing infrastructure to do that, number one? So utilizing things like, hey, I've got access points in every room. Why don't I leverage that access point, not just for my HSIA traffic, but to onboard all of the other applications, the operational service technology stacks, to bring that on board at the same time, whether that be Zigbee for my door locks, BLE for my staff alert or staff duress systems, and converge that on one infrastructure. And that allows for some pretty significant capital expense savings on the part of the owners, particularly if you can identify that need up front. You're saving on external gateways, additional and redundant cable drops, switch ports, the footprint in the IDF, heating, cooling, electric, et cetera. And that begins to add up with some significant operational savings. So I think there's a lot to look at there. So as we've stepped back, CommScope from really the beginning of COVID had taken a number of steps to help with that, starting with extending support policies. We had a number of brands reach out to us, and they were really concerned because at the same time COVID was hitting, they were also seeing an uptick in the security threats. So there was a lot more phishing attempts, a lot more penetration attempts associated with, or just coincidentally timed with, the pandemic. So we also rolled back our support policies in our software lifecycle so that we could address those security concerns with releases that would support older, previously deployed networks. Now, what we're really looking at is focusing on the needs. It kind of starts with the big brands, if you will. And I think from the big brands, it's extensible out to smaller brands, independents and boutiques, and what they need. And it's really about helping, owners are under a much more increased, more urgent sense of preserving cash flow while they're being asked to make new technology investments. We talked about the contactless guest journey. There's certainly technology investments associated with that, but there's also the need and desire to preserve my capital for where I make it. So some of the things that we've been starting to really focus on in terms of where we're innovating is really helping the owners and brands understand what properties require those investments and which ones can be deferred so that they're able to make a more data-informed decision. It's great that the brands have kind of set back their brand standard requirements for a year and said, hey, we're not going to force any updates. But that doesn't mean that the needs have gone away, right? There are some properties that really do need it, and there's an increased sensitivity around brand loyalty right now. There's been some recent studies coming out of the pandemic, that even as business travel is starting to ramp up, a lot of the decisions that were largely driven through a brand preference, now there's other factors weighing into that decision. And that's a two-edged sword, right? Brands are struggling to rebuild brand loyalty. And that means a focus on that guest experience, while at the same time looking at other ways to monetize the networks. So data-informed decisions is number one. Helping to monetize their networks is number two. So there's some new avenues for monetizing the network, the data we get from the network, and the space itself on the property. And then thirdly is that convergence conversation we just had with Jeff around how can we converge those operational technology stacks on the property for that CapEx and OpEx. So we kind of roll that in to help owners make data-informed decisions, and then when and where they make those technology investments, allowing them to defer the capital expense, potentially convert it to OpEx. And in many cases, and this is one of these little known things that the accountants and the finance people like to do, sometimes you want to keep some of those assets off your books. So CommScope's been putting a wrapper around this to allow us to do a network as a service, make the technology investment, but tie it back, particularly for those that would qualify for it, to an occupancy-based model, so that we can help the owners, the franchisees, make those investments and then ride the recovery so that they're paying for those investments as their business supports it. That's really where we've been focusing, Zach.
Awesome. Brett, great, robust answer there. Really great insights.